Awesome. Guys, thanks so much for coming this morning. My name's Joe, if I haven't met you yet. We're here with Dom, Kieran, Han, and a couple other people. So first of all, thanks for coming. The whole idea behind today is there's an art versus science to what running is and what training is. The art part is fun. As I was reading through some of the notes, and there's a lot of coaches, running coaches, gym coaches in the room, and we all get the art. Today we want to do a little bit of the art and the science. So you've got your spreadsheet, you've got your macro periodization, you've got all that fun stuff. And then you've got the mechanics, where are your hips, where's your foot, where's all that sort of stuff. And today we want to bridge that gap. You guys will walk away with why people get injured, what we can do about it, what you can eat to fuel better, and essentially just have more tools in your tool belt. So this is not you get a spreadsheet, you walk away and go, I'm going to follow this plan. This is information, and then go and apply it, go and do it. We're going to get some people up on the treadie later, and we're actually going to see it in real time. And you're going to go, okay, cool. I can now connect the dots and do all this sort of stuff from there. So very much a practical, very much an interactive. Expect to get moving around. And any time throughout today, if you have any questions, hand just goes up and just ask, because we're going to go fast. I was reviewing the notes this morning, and to fit all this in 2 hours is going to be chock-a-block. So notes, questions, and yeah, it's going to be a good one. We're going to start with Kieran. Kieran's my business partner from Brisbane, if you haven't met him. He owns Burleigh with me and owns Brisbane with me. We've been working together for almost 10 years now, and very, very good at what he does. So, over to you.
Thanks, mate. Got to put this on. Righto, so I bloody keep meaning to get down here a little bit more, but not very good at organising my life. And Joe's moved down here and said I've no one to organise my life, but pretty stoked to be down here and doing this. We've done running mechanics workshops before quite a few times, probably about 4 iterations, but it's pretty exciting to have Dom and Han involved and to actually sort of connect the dots with this whole thing. A big philosophy of ours at SOF is to try and provide people with the tools to understand processes and systems so that they can take care of themselves, as opposed to going, do this, we won't really let you understand, and our way is the only way. At the end of the day, you know your body far better than any of us ever will. And so we just want to give you a few more tools to that. So we'll get sort of stuck straight into it. Some of the data on running is actually pretty amazing. And this is probably the biggest one is, approximately 56% of recreational runners will hurt themselves at some point in their recreational running career. And then 90% of those training for a marathon will probably sustain an injury, which makes very little sense. Like, what idiots, why do a marathon? You've got a 90% chance of hurting yourself. If you had $100 and you wanted to take a bet and you had a 90% chance of losing your money, you probably wouldn't take that bet, right? But here we are trying to run. And so for me as a practitioner, it's like, why does this happen all of a sudden? And there's some really interesting sort of theories and models on the trends as to why we get injured so often running. And some of the stuff really comes down to changes in sort of lifestyle and footwear. And in the last 100 years, as a species, we've suddenly become very sedentary. And so that probably is the big root of evil. But then, we want to connect the dots as to why. And then more importantly, as I said, give you guys the tools as to how to unpack and unravel that, so you actually don't have to be a subject of the lack of movement that's in our life. So that's really the whole crux of this workshop. We just want to help you understand your body and give you the capability of taking care of yourself. Okay. So the things we're going to go through, the 4 most common reasons people get injured with running, and Dom's going to go into detail with that. How your mechanics impact your performance, and that sort of will connect those first 2 dots. The strength training to assist your running. And, I think there's nothing more frustrating than when you go and see a therapist or someone and you've got a running related injury and they say, you need a strength train. And then you go, okay, what does that mean? So, no one's really connecting those dots, I think, for the average person. And so that's where I sort of see our responsibility is to actually give you an understanding of what strong is. Because it's not, look at how big and strong I am, my muscles and that sort of thing. It's actually about, can you tolerate the loads that you're going to put into your body when you're running or any other movement? That, for me, is what strength is. So we'll go into those details, which will be fun. And then Han's going to hit it home with the fueling, because that's obviously the last piece of the puzzle. So we've got Dom, Joey said, so, qualifications and that sort of thing is obviously very important for us. We do call ourselves the science of fitness. Science is there as the means with which we can measure and test and actually trust. And so, from a qualification perspective, it's always important, I think, for us to have people on our team that actually have done the time to understand the processes that allow us to actually advise accordingly. So again, you can go through those details and check those guys out, but more importantly, it's about you guys. So the biggest thing is we want to actually get an understanding from an assessment perspective. And there's a number of layers, and the beauty about the modern world is we can use tech to sort of connect those dots. We're going to roll, particularly with Dom's stuff, on the treadmill and do some actual sort of individualized assessments, and you'll sort of get an understanding of the processes as to what we do with that. We then have a number of other layers from force plates and all sort of high-tech stuff that we're going to actually be bringing down here into Burley a lot more to give you a bit of a taste as to how you generate forces in and out of the floor, and then more so how you can start to train in a way to mitigate those forces. But I won't bang on about that too much. So start of the week, we sent you an email asking 3 questions. Do you currently have running-based goals? What's the main thing you want to get out of today's workshop, and then any other important information you think we should know? About half of you answered that, so kudos to that half. Here's kind of the main things. It's staying injury-free whilst increasing your weekly load. It's I'm doing the right things. I'm following all these rules and structures, and I've seen all this stuff on the internet and there's so much information, and I'm trying to apply it, but I still keep breaking down. And it's all these sort of common frustrations, I think, that the average person's dealing with. And there's kind of 2 layers. One, what you're doing, which is critical. That needs to be right. And then the second part with that is actually doing it correctly. And that's sort of where I see the biggest gap is, people have the best of intentions. They go and do their strength training, they manage their load, they do all the little right things to warm up, and then their body still lets them down. It still breaks down at some point. And so there's probably about a 20% deficit in terms of understanding and or execution. I'm anecdotally saying this, with which you might just be missing a few little mechanical details, be it in your mechanics as you actually run, or be it in how you strength train. And that's, again, what we want to sort of connect the dots with today. So common things we hear, I want to do this, but I can't because of X, Y, and Z reason. And we've been diagnosed with some sort of injury, you break down at some sort of point, you get to a certain distance, whatever it might be. The biggest thing is we just want to be able to close the gap and let you understand how and where the breakdown might be occurring. Okay. So most obvious things, you can't make progression if you're injured and if you keep breaking down. That's obvious, right? Most common reasons people get injured, there's a load element, so they ramp up volume too soon, they do too much too soon, they ramp up their intensity too fast too soon, too hard too soon, try and run with the people that have always run, and they're really quick, aren't strong enough to handle, and that is probably the most common one. For me, that is, I suppose, misinterpreted and then also miscued and mistrained. And we'll talk through the process as to how we approach that. And then, mechanics just aren't sound enough. They have a breakdown and they leak force everywhere. They're inefficient, and maybe they're overloading certain joints, tissues, whatever it might be. And so to sort of kick things off from a mechanical perspective, we'll hand over to the mechanics then. All right. Yeah, I'll give you the mic. I said no one will be able to hear you, mate.
Absolutely not. Thanks. Cool. All right. Awesome. How is everyone? Good? Beautiful. Who runs? Put your hand up. Does everyone here run? First off. Mostly? Cool. Who's gotten injured running before? Put your hand up. Love it. Who coaches runners? Anyone? Yep, 1, 2. Awesome. Brilliant. My most important philosophy with everything that I do in relation to running is you have to feel things. I can stand up here all day and I can tell you about do this exercise, do this drill, do this, technical change, whatever it might be. But unless you feel it here today, you're going to walk away from here and go, oh, actually, I'm not going to listen to him. What does he know? Blah, blah, blah. So out of today, I want every single person to be able to feel something within their body where they're like, yep, I can feel that change. I feel like I can implement that change and then take that to go and get better at your running. Does that make sense? Cool. Before we start, does anyone have any questions? No? Cool. Anyway, what do I see as a physio, run coach, and runner myself? Ooh. Biggest thing that I see from runners, especially here on the Gold Coast, is that you compare yourself to everyone else's journey way too much. Does everyone feel that? Yeah? it's really hard. We live in a place and an atmosphere where everyone is fit, they run, they're running fast, they're running lots of volume, they're doing all those sorts of things. But the most important thing with running, it takes a lot of time to get good at. You've got to be consistent over years. And I'm talking like 5, 6, 7 years, not 1 or 2 years. To get really good aerobically, but also to develop the strength base, you know, and the qualities to become a good runner, both technically and then with physical components. And that's definitely the biggest thing that I see, is they'll come in and their actual volume is probably 30 or 40% beyond what their current capacity is. And their intensities of their slower zone 2 stuff. I had a guy come in the other day and he did a lactate test. And we found that his lactate threshold 1, which is like your low zone 2, anything below that will be zone 2, was actually around 6:05 per kilometre, and he's doing his slow runs at 5:15. So he's doing most of his runs at, you know, a tempo type pace, realistically, and it's in that zone. If you overload, that's when problems and the body starts to break down a little bit, okay? So I'd say that's the biggest thing. Everyone's well overdoing those slower runs, which I'm probably sure you already know. Does everyone feel that with some of their runs, that maybe they're overdoing it a little bit, a touch, and then they come in and see me and they go, ooh. And then I tell them, okay, what are you running these slow ones at? And they're like, 4:55. And I'm like, ooh, cool, brilliant. Let's start there. Sweet. Does everyone know who this guy is? No? It's Jakob Ingebrigtsen. He's a Norwegian runner. His technique is flawless in my opinion, but that's why I just put him up there. Thought he runs good. Awesome. Next. A little bit about me, just so you know, I'm just not some guy up here just talking to you and talking at you about things. I've been running, coaching and in the space for about, 10 years now. When I was, I'm 26 by the way. When I was 16, when I was 16, I got a really cool opportunity with the Queensland Academy of Sport, and I got to observe Sally and Michelle Janicki and all those guys that were hurdlers kind of coming up through the space. And that kind of really fueled and inspired me to pursue running mechanics and pursue a career in injury prevention and therefore getting people better at running. So I started with my Cert 3, and then I did another physio degree and then a running coaching degree, and I'm currently doing a sports physio degree as well. I haven't always been a long distance runner. I started off with speed stuff. I ran 1,500 meters and track stuff at school and in high school. I spent a lot of time playing soccer up in Brisbane. And then in the last few years, I do the long stuff, the brain stuff. Just because I think there's nothing better than getting out there and running 100 Ks through nature. Crazy, I know, absolutely. Okay, before I talk about technique, technique change doesn't necessarily mean changing it on the spot. So a lot of people will come to me and they'll do a running analysis and they expect to walk away and have a brand new technique straight away. What I find by doing that is we overload other structures way too much. So you're running with overstride, heel strike, and then we like switch you up and you're now running, you know, more forefoot or whatever it might be. They walk away and then they come back to see me and they go, oh, Dom, I've got a niggly Achilles. I'm like, well, yeah, we've completely changed your mechanics and you're now just overloading other structures. So over time, I've learned that the best way to change someone's technique in mechanics is to give them the adequate drills, exercises, skills, whatever it might be, to almost do that over time themselves. Because you will feel the difference when you change your mechanics as it goes over time, which is the goal today, is to make you feel things within your body so that you know where it is you're striking on the ground or what your recovery leg is like, to therefore change it over time. It's the best way to do it in my opinion, because otherwise it can lead to a lot of issues. Technique change can be pretty. It can look really cool, but if it's applied incorrectly, it can do more harm than good, like I just said. And changing technique means nothing if you still load like a camel and eat like a sloth, okay? Camels, they're designed to go for miles and miles and miles and miles and miles. If you're still loading and doing 100K weeks, but we change your technique, it's not gonna do anything. And if you eat like a sloth, so sloths don't eat anything, by the way. So if you eat nothing, you're gonna be, struggling. You're not even gonna wanna train, okay? So run often, run far, but never outrun your love of running. That basically just says never outrun your current capacity. Cool? Okay, I'm gonna get everyone up. This is gonna be really simple. You've got a sheet. Can you pair up for me? We're gonna do 2 tests. I want you to see this yourself. It's really nice to have some objective measures that we can go away with today to see where you're at. We're gonna do a single leg to box sit test and a single leg calf raise endurance test. They are gonna be both to fatigue today. If we had the plates, I would also do some power and some strength testing and things, or a dynamometer. Don't have it here, so this is just an easy way that we can do some stuff. Can everyone get a bench? You might have to have 4 on a bench potentially, like 2 and then 2 observing. If everyone just turns around, just stand up, we're gonna be active. If you need to change where your benches are, do so. All right, I'm just gonna quickly demo it, what we're looking at. Box or rise test. I go hands across chest, one arm out in front, sit, stand. You're gonna keep going until you can't do anymore. Partner, watch for technique. If this starts to happen, test done. That's the first one. Calf raise test. If possible, can you get your shoes off for that one? And actually go shoes off for both. Make it easy. Calf raise test. Usually with this one, I'll let people hold on with a couple of fingers. If they start grabbing and pulling, then the test is a fail. Okay? Up onto the toes, 1, down, up, down. As many as you can on each side. Record it, and then we'll reconvene and we'll talk about what your results were versus your partner, left versus right, whatever it might be, that you can start with. And the goal is that you walk away from here, you work on some stuff, you do these tests again, and it's way better. Cool? Cool. Find a bench. Let's do it. Alrighty guys, let's come back in. It's something, you feel a difference, you feel whatever it might be. Quick, as everyone's getting back sorted, put your hand up if you did a test and it was different side to side. Cool, by a lot or by a little? Little bit, cool. Awesome. What about, did you feel a difference in control side to side with the squat? Cool. With the calf raise, did you feel fatigue come on quicker in the left versus the right? Cool, awesome. So, with that sort of test, in my opinion, it only really tells us half of the picture with some single leg stuff. There are so many tests that we can do. But often I'll see runners that come in that are one of 2 categories. They're a runner with strong physical qualities. They can do tests like that or endurance tests like that, and they're pretty bloody good. But when I get them on a treadmill and tell them to run, and I tell them to hop, and I tell them to jump off a box, they collapse. The body goes to shit, okay? So that's the other type of runner I see. Runners with really strong elastic qualities. And that's probably the main thing that I want you to get out of today, that running itself is done with relatively short ground contact times. The more time you spend on the ground, the more force is absorbed through the ground, you're losing and you waste energy, okay? So, what we're gonna be doing next is we're gonna be getting up in a sec once I get through a few more things, and we're gonna be focusing on assessing and feeling the elastic qualities in the body, the long tendon attachments, okay? Because in my opinion, it's the thing that's missed the most in runners. Is often a runner won't actually be asked to run and then get assessed running. So how can we really tell what it is in their running that's faulty? If they just do a single leg squat and a calf raise test, yes, it can tell us what their strength base is like, but it doesn't tell us the picture. What actually happens when they run? Do they collapse through the knee? Is the toe off really poor and sluggish? What does it look like side to side? And they're the things that we can see when someone runs, which is cool. So understanding running means being a runner yourself and understanding some anatomy and physiology and biomechanics. And always ask yourself, when you are training, what are you trying to train? There are so many components we can train, okay? From stiffness, coordination, reflexive control, strength, power. So when you're programming, you're doing your strength training, what is it that you're focusing on and why? All ask yourself why. Like, that's the key thing. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but it's obviously important. The 3 pillars of endurance physiology. We have our aerobic system, our anaerobic system, and our musculoskeletal system. And this is where I love to spend most of the time today, because this stuff can be very sciencey and very boring for you all. But yes, there are 3 areas. Next. Cool. The endurance ideology, I'll be really quick. As I said at the start, aerobic base is king. You can't build a skyscraper on sand. It's going to fall over. Specificity and individualization. Training must reflect the demands of the sport that you are doing. Are you doing a marathon? Are you running trails? Are you sprinting? Doesn't matter what it is. And long-term development, like I said, it's a multi-year build. Next. I'm going to be trying to be really quick. Cool. Once again, I'll be relatively quick with this. There's going to be slides that are more extensive for you guys on this. But basically, my training methodology is around what we call polarized intensity distribution. Most of your time, it's the 80-20 rule, should be spent up here. And like I said, everyone does that too fast generally. It's a big mistake that I see. And scrap zone 3, mainly zone 4-5 work is about 15%. And I really only add tempo type zone 3 work closer to someone's race when they're doing what I call utilization training. Because this is highly neurally and fatiguing for the body, musculoskeletal, aerobically, everything. Purely for the fact that you're doing runs for like 30 or 40 minutes where you're really kind of pushing beyond your capacity. It's like those tempo blocks are long and they're really quite fatiguing, and an athlete will pull up after them and be like, whew, and sore and tired for days. So really strategically using those and making sure your training is really periodized over a whole year or couple of years around an event in particular, and then we break that into little micro blocks. Next. Cool. As I said, I could talk about that for hours. There's a lot to it. It's done wrong a lot of the time, but let's talk about the musculoskeletal system, because this is what I want to go through. So my approach to analyzing someone's running is through 2 lenses. The first is that traditional lens where we literally look at a single leg squat, we look at a calf raise, we look at some things like that, and then we prescribe exercises based on what we see when someone is just doing a strength exercise. Cool. This lens, and my second lens that I look at, it's a Bosch lens, named after a guy called Franz Bosch, where it's more coordination and phase-centric. So reflexive patterns, stiffness, hip locking. What happens when someone moves through space? We look at people on a treadmill. We see how they look when they reflexively bounce off one leg through toe off. And we look at those things, and then that's where we program and we give them exercises and drills. And that's the cool stuff, in my opinion. It's where we can really see a lot. Skip that. That just tells you what muscles are used in running. Okay. So from a traditional approach, for example, when someone first lands, what are we looking at? Quads, glutes, glute med, tibant, those sorts of things. And then we're training the component that we see that's poor. Cool. Whether that's they land and they drop and they've got really poor stability through the quad, they've got really poor lateral hip stability, whatever it might be. But it's also what we see when they do a squat and a calf raise and that sort of thing. I think it's better if you guys would just read through that rather than me just going through that more than anything. Cool. Same in mid stance, things that we see and go through. Keep going. Then in toe off, there's other things that work. Next. And then in swing. Keep this one here for a bit, because what happens through swing, in my opinion, is one of the most important parts of running that I see. People are really lazy through swing. I'll often see people run, they're really backside, and they'll do this. They'll come through for their next step and it's low, okay? The hamstrings work eccentrically in swing as we come up, and a really good runner, you'll see that their recovery leg angle is super high. They're getting it up and through. And that ability of the tendon to kind of shorten and lengthen through that gait cycle creates a lot of elasticity and force transfer. And it's one thing that we'll see today when people get up and run is you'll notice that a lot of people are really lazy in bringing their leg through. A lot of people bring their leg through in swing just with their hip rather than their hamstring and through. Cool, and we'll see it, which is really fun. Next. Awesome. So strength training, it's phenomenal, highly recommended. I do it with everyone still. But in my opinion, the missing link for most runners in injury prevention and performance is coordination. Elastic energy management and reflexive control of the body. Sweet. I should go back one. Stand up. Cool. This is, I want you to feel this and tell me what you feel. Put your hands on your hips. Point your toe towards the floor and just do this up and down. Yep, just with the toe. Cool. Next, what do you feel first off? Is that pretty easy to do? Not too bad? Yep, cool. Next thing I want you to do, create some pre-stretch through dorsiflexion and then hit the ground. Okay, and do it a couple of times. Do toe. Yep, and then do pre-stretch. Okay, keep going. Do it a few more times. Some people don't feel anything. Okay, cool. Is there a difference? Cool. Someone tell me what the difference is. Yep, anyone. What do you feel? You can shout it out. Yep.
Feedback.
Feedback? What does that mean?
So when you bounce your toes to get more bounce back, but when you do your full foot, it's just, yeah, it just goes into the ground.
Okay, okay. Anyone else have anything different to that or the same? No? With the toe up or the toe down? Okay, that's super interesting. You guys are fun. Anything else? Anyone else notice anything? When you hit the ground with a flat foot, does the knee bounce up quicker or slower? Try it one more time. Slower. You guys are interesting. Yeah. So when everyone does this for the first time, it's really weird. We get people that say, oh, it feels way easy to go on my toe versus a flat foot. But one more time and listen. I want you to hear it. Go toe down. Toe down versus flat foot. And do it like you mean it. Attack the ground. Creating pre-stretch and pre-tension through the body creates a bunch of mechanisms and gets the body ready to attack the ground. So what you should have felt and what you will feel later is it takes more effort to lift from a toe because you've got to use the hip flexor to drive up. But when you attack the ground with pre-stretch, yep, it should bounce. Cool. Just wanted you to feel that. It's cool if you didn't feel that, because in a sec we'll do some other things so you can feel the change and the difference. What I'm going to do actually, can I get 3 people up here? Cool. Give yourself, yeah, line up. Or maybe 2. Drop one off. Who doesn't want to? Oh! Okay. And actually one more thing while everyone's here. Hit out in front and then hit underneath your body. Just do that. This one's a super easy one to feel. So hit out in front, then hit under your body. Okay, what's easier? Under the body, cool, awesome. All right, wanted everyone to feel that one real quick as well. So same thing. So you imagine you're running and you're overstriding and you're striking out here versus there. Oof, yep, bounce back, feedback, boom, boom, boom. Okay, what I'm gonna get you guys to do, I want you to go like this. I want you, yep, like that. I want you to bounce on the toes. Just bounce on the toes to the other side, on the tippy toes. Yep. Just keep going. Okay, awesome. Feel that, you felt that. Okay, now I want you to put a bit of pre-stretch, so dorsiflex to start. Yep, from this position. And I want you to attack the ground. Hit hard. Hit hard. Okay, what's easier, what's harder? Okay, cool, that's fine. No, understood, all good. What I'm gonna ask you is, when you attack the ground, actually do it one more time and I want everyone to watch, just watch and observe. What happens to the opposite leg when you bounce on the toes? What does everyone see on when they're on the toes? Okay, now do it with a dorsiflex and hit hard. So what happens when we pre-tension or pre-stretch into a little bit of dorsiflexion? And by the way, this is just drill-wise, what we practice with some of these guys, is there's a natural reflex that as soon as you create pre-tension and you hit the ground hard, the opposite leg drives up without you thinking about it. It's more stable and it's stiff. But what happens when you swing is you see a lot of this. A lot of people will just go from side to side and it's a little bit more unstable. Does everyone want to feel that real quick? Do you want to feel that? Yeah, everyone stand up and feel it themselves. This feels like. Okay, so from this lens, there's a few slides about what we might work on technically. This kind of training is more so, it's not like, okay, go run with a flat foot. That's not what I'm talking about. This sort of training is more so focusing on, okay, when we get someone on the treadmill, this will make sense. If we see that someone has really poor toe off and when they're up here, what they do is they delay it and then you don't see much of explosiveness from here. We would then train a drill to focus on that component. If someone landed and they looked like this when they ran, not that much, but if we saw that, we would focus on a drill that focused on lateral hip stability under some force to focus on that. Yes?
Say, should we, if you're doing a zone 2 run,
yes.
it's naturally easy to not use the leg drive as much.
Correct.
Quicker zone format.
Yep.
Should we be aiming for more leg drive during the zone 2 run?
That's a good question, and not specifically. What we want to feel when we do zone 2 is it should be naturally quite obviously easy, like easy to the point that it's easy. But I urge you after today just to go out and feel what it feels like to kind of plod versus to give it a little bit of more attention to what's happening through the floor. The more you give, the more you get back. So even with your slow runs, you can focus on that. But this sort of training becomes really, really strong and powerful when we're doing our faster stuff towards marathon day. Because you're training the musculature to be better reflexively over a longer period of time. By all means, this takes time. You will probably go out and practice some things and feel and be like, oh yeah, that's difficult to start with. It's a trainable component that's similar to anything we do in the gym, takes time. This stuff becomes even more important when we're thinking about injury management and injury prevention with guys as well. Like super important. Okay, so for example, if we see a sinking in stance, we would target calf Achilles stiffness. We don't just do calf raises, we do plyos for the calf to be able to explode. Next. If the hamstrings have got a really low recovery, we would focus on switch drills to get people going and targeting, getting you up, so that hamstring is able to do that component. Hip lock, we're gonna do a hip lock together at some point later. A hip lock is basically when we go into terminal stance, like right at the end, and get ready to drive through. Hip lock is this component. What happens there? Cool? And what happens when someone lifts that leg? The opposite contralateral trunk and glute get strong and they stabilize so that you don't sink. Cool? So then once again, it's a trainable component. And you can imagine if you're running and you've got a really strong hip lock there with each stride, you're stiff. The whole system is stiff. It's not sway. Cool? Next. This one's more so about what happens when someone lands. Most people I see that haven't focused on some of this stuff. There is some inherent in that I see in most people, even if it's subtle. How many people have had knee-related issues running here? Yeah, cool. So there's a few. Yeah, it's a big component. What did you do to fix it? Did you just go in the gym and just did a bunch of single leg squats and stuff for a while to get it strong? Or does it just go away naturally? Sometimes these things do. The body's fun. Yeah, cool. So there needs to be, in my opinion, for prevention for future, at the end of a rehab, the component of this is, well, to get the body ready for that reflexive action of running, especially at speeds, for sure. So I'm going to get you to feel some more things later. We're going to watch some people run, and then we're going to actually break these things down so you can all see it in action, how we would give them a strength program, and then alongside that strength program, give them some drills. And then when we combine them together with good load, good nutrition, these are winners. They're winners. The runners love it. They feel good. They feel stable. They feel reflexive. Yeah, really cool stuff. But important generally with a lot of this, there needs to be some base level of strength in the gym, which is really important. Yeah, awesome. Next. Cool. I think we will do this later once we watch people run, because these are going to be drills that we're going to work on and similar with that. Cool.
Strength, like it's super funny because it's, what is this thing? Literally, this is what we're going to do. I have one slide, and that's it. I worked really hard on it. No, because the biggest thing for me was, again, Dom said it, feeling. It's by far the most important thing, okay? And so I'm going to simplify everything a lot. Think about it like this. Who can play an instrument, guitar particularly, here? Surely. No, you guys live on the Gold Coast. All the cool ones aren't here. Nothing, far out, I'm disappointed. Anyway, any instrument, any skill for that matter, you will approach it, you should approach it like this. If I said, get up here, here's a guitar, and you're singing Wonderwall, could have chosen a better song, but you're singing Wonderwall to the crew, you'd be like, not happening, all right? But if I said you got 12 weeks and I'm going to teach you how to play the guitar, then you're going to stand up, you'd still be a bit nervous, but hopefully a bit better, okay? And the way you would learn that is I'd go C chord, C chord, C chord, C chord, C chord, C chord, isolating the C chord, right? And then you go to the G and then blah, 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 blah. And then you work your way into integrating the C, G, blah, 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 and then you have your song. And Keith Richards and all the other musicians, they're not thinking about the chord they're playing when they're on stage. They are genuinely improvising, and there's methods underneath that they've learned here, and they just feel and go with it, and it's amazing, and it's art. When we go and run, when we do any skill, it's very hard to remember your hip block and your isolation, all these things, when you get fatigued and the sun's rising or setting, or there's a butterfly or something. It's like we get distracted, we don't think about the mechanics, right? Because you can't stay engaged for these long periods of time, particularly when there's endurance involved. So what we need to do is take a lot of time to do these two phases so that we can trust it when we get here. We can trust it. It's going to be the right thing at the right time. And that's the whole skill development. But it's more so, can we isolate the specific areas that have been identified in the mechanical breakdown that we've seen, strengthen them and integrate that now newly strengthened and contractile sort of awareness and feeling, integrate it into some more complex movement that start to relate pretty close to my running related drills, so that then I can go and do my specific development and integration drills, so that when I'm then out there doing my zone 2 for a long period of time, I don't necessarily need to consciously think about every step I take, but I've done the due diligence beforehand in the gym and in the preparatory stuff so that the right thing happens at the right time for the right movement. Cool with that? Sweet. The rules with posture. There's no such thing as good posture. Because right now you're all sitting, and you're sitting very well. Good job. Good posture for sitting. The only time posture is bad is if you're stuck in it. So if you mimic a sitting-like shape and you run, not going to be great for running. So your running posture is now not good. Okay, and so that's when we can think about it. So strength training really is just being able to improve your control and access into certain shapes so that you can appropriately generate forces in those shapes. That's the whole idea with it. It doesn't matter what you look like or how much muscles you have, but it's much more about your ability to access the right muscle at the right time, the right shape, the right posture. Okay, so this is what we're going to go into, and we're going to go after those 4 areas, all right? Because then the last little bit, which I won't touch on because we're going to go into it a little bit more, is around the calf and the reflexive sort of power and strength that you have in the lower limb. So let's start with it. Of those 4, where should we start, do you think? So we had glutes, so hip extensors, hip flexors, core, abdominals, and T-spine, ribs, chest, shoulders. Where should we start? Oh, nice. There's like 4 different answers. Core, your abdominals. All right? Get some space on the floor. Let's go. You're going to lie down on your back. I'm going to go fast and hard with this, so strap in. Feel for the 2 bones on the front of your hips. That's called your ASIS, anterior superior iliac spine. I could have made that up. No one will question me except a few of the therapists here. But anyway, those bones, that's just a reference for where your pelvis is. You haven't put your hands on your hips, you've put your hands on your pelvis. Your hip is a little bit lower than that, but where your pelvis is will determine where your hip is, particularly when you run. These bones can move in 2 directions. You can arch your lower back, so do that, arch your lower back. That means I can slide my hand underneath where your lower back is. Who gets lower back pain? Put your hand up. Yeah. Oh, this doesn't feel great. Now, flatten your lower back. Boom. Arch your lower back. That's called an anterior tilt. Flatten your lower back. Good. Cool. Put your hand on your tummy. Arch your lower back. Breathe in and let your stomach expand into your hands. Now, breathe out, flatten your lower back. Does your tummy muscles push out into your fingers? Put your hand up if that happened. Put your hand up if you're not sure. Good, there's always a few. Arch your lower back, breathe into your belly again. Just bear with me. When you flatten your lower back, breathe out and get skinny. Suck your tummy in, narrow your waist up. Okay? Stay there. So we need to understand how to recruit our deep abdominals, all right? And that is, this crude word that we use, core. There's so many layers to it. But the way you breathe is the first place with which you determine how you use your core, all right? So you're going to now go back to those bony parts in the front of the hips, ASIS, right? You're going to slide your fingers just in about 1 centimeter and feel that soft tissue that is in and around your lower abs. You're going to arch your lower back and breathe into your belly. You're going to feel a lengthening mechanism happen, and those muscles around your abs should switch off and they should soften. And then you're going to roll your pelvis back towards you and breathe out. Breathe out, breathe out, breathe out, breathe out. Keep going, 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 keep going. And you'll feel a little push up into those fingers. Wait there. If your stomach is clenched and pushing out, gone. You're dead to me. Keep your waist narrow, but extend your exhale. Do that one more time. Arch your lower back. Breathe in. Breathe out. Let your pelvis roll back towards you. Draw your belly button in and then keep that belly button in as you extend your exhale. Go, 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 go. Wait there. Feel a little squeeze and lift and like a tensing. Okay? Good. So that's a little indication as to where your transverse abdominals are and how they relate to the way you move your pelvis. Because if you now, as you lie there, imagine you're running. And if you breathe in and arch your lower back, and then if you breathe out and flex your hips under, and your pelvis waves around like that every time you breathe and run, it's not going to be very efficient. It's going to look pretty funky too, okay? Lift up your right knee to 90 degrees. Stay there. Keep your belly button in. Keep your pelvis still. Keep your lower back where it is. Don't let your stomach press out towards the roof. Lift up your left knee to join it. Make an assessment. Did your stomach press out? Don't worry, you're not going to die if it did. Let your knees rock towards you. You shorten the length of the lever. Draw your belly button in and pull your spine along. There your pelvis is, again, sort of rolled back slightly if necessary. And then gradually let those legs come further away from you. But don't let your lower back tilt out and don't let your stomach press out into your hands. So keep that waist narrow. Okay? Pretty hard to do, You can go one leg at a time. Extend your left, draw your belly button in with that left leg out and that right knee. Look at that, hold that position, keep it there. That belly button should be zipping in. Good. What position are we mimicking? If I put you upright on that straight leg, your running shape, yeah? Good, relax. Sit yourself up. Here's where we begin. There is a big difference between me going, flatten my lower back and brace out, and veins in my neck, I can't breathe. Imagine if I ran like this. It'd be shocking, I'd be terribly inefficient, okay? So I wanna be able to go belly button in, waist narrow, stable, pelvis still. I have access to my diaphragm here. It's this lovely long spine. And if any of you have done any form of sprint coaching, you will get told to stay tall. Here it is, here is tall, okay? I keep my belly button in, my pelvis stays still. I'm not squeezing my lower back flat, I'm just staying long. And then I want to just be able to extend out, waist narrow, never holding my breath here. And I just want to build a system that can handle these lengthened levers without deviating or changing shape. And most importantly, so I can breathe, okay? Ironically enough, this is the same work that we would do if you're going to do handstands, or if you've got really bad chronic lower back pain. Probably not to that length and that extent, but the principles don't change. And we need to understand that very simply, because you can do all the glute work you want, and you can do all the lunges and squats you want, but if you lack control and awareness of this, as soon as you start to get fatigued on your run, you'll start to throw that pelvis around again, and looks good on the dance floor, not on the running track. So, anyone got any wait a minute, what is that? Questions quickly, because I'm going to keep going. That made 100% sense, and you're cool with that now. Why do you think it's so weak or weird or hard? What don't we do a lot of in life? Or what do we do a lot of in life? Sit, and we don't use it, right? And so we do not much. And then we go, I'm going to go get into running. And we start running. And we start playing Wonderwall without ever playing or practicing the guitar. You know, we might have gone through this movement journey as babies and wriggled around, and then at 5 years old, you're shoved into a chair and you don't move as much. And then we move less and less and less and less and less, and then try and move really fast and hard. And so this is where it starts with the foundation, okay? So where your pelvis is then going to determine how your hip moves, which is what we're going to go to next. Put one foot up. What did your pelvis do? It tilted. The hip flexor starts, this is a crude summary, on the front of your pelvis. So before we try and lengthen it, let's use that first drill. Deep abdominals on, waist narrow, squeeze your back butt cheek. Now slide forward, but don't let that hip bone change. Feel that squeal down the front of the thigh? There's your hip flexor. It's like a banjo string, right? Now, keep that pelvic position, float your back knee. Keep your waist narrow, keep your back butt cheek tight. Check it. Is it tight? You got a hand, you got to tap that thing. All right, check it. Now reach your arm up. Keep your waist narrow. Now, like a palm tree in the wind, other hump. That's it. Lean, 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 lean. But don't lose your pelvis. Good, down you come, okay? You get how the dots connect, because if I start to get, or if I'm pretty weak or disorganized and lack control at my abs, I'm going to lack control of my pelvis. Guess where we are at the end of our gait when we run, at the last phase. We're going to swing that knee through, and what did Dom say that people are really bad at with their knee? The recovery phase back here and that knee coming through. So we let our pelvis stay here. Where's our problem? These hip flexors get to stay close to each other. Why do they want to stay close to each other? Because they spend probably 8 hours a day close to each other. Origin, insertion, like crudely down your thigh. Got it. So what have we addressed? Done the abs, done the hip flexors. What do you think's next? We'll go to the glutes. Doesn't really matter, but let's go to the glutes, okay? So stand up. You've now found your new friend, your pelvis. Arch your lower back. Breathe in. Let your belly push out. And then roll your pelvis backwards. Breathe out. Draw your belly in. What squeezes? Glutes, tummy muscles draw in, right? It's on. Okay, so we find that neutral pelvic position. What's quite funny is, think about this now, do the same thing, and then roll your pelvis as far back as you can, but don't dump your chest. Just roll your pelvis, go, 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 and then a pause and assess what your knees have done. Whose knees have gone little tilt? Yes? Okay, now apply your brain. Why? I talked about origin, I talked about insertion. So now you can stand on one leg. You're going to draw your belly button in. Again, long spine. And now you're going to pull one knee up. And you're going to pause there. And you're going to press this knee back and keep lifting this knee up. Go, 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 go. Stay there. What's squeezing? Standing legs, glute. Great. That's us taking out our ab isolation and starting to integrate it into our glute work, okay? So now if we take half a step back, you've been told you've got weak glutes and you lack stability at your hip. Let's isolate them. It's actually quite hard and quite complex when I'm using the ground and the chain is closed, okay, the kinetic chain. So you're going to lie on your side and we're going to open the kinetic chain. You're going to feel for two things. The front of the thigh, you're going to feel your hip flexors, okay? And then you're going to, with your fingers, you're going to feel your glute median particularly, okay? Or you can flip your hand, up to you. I don't really care. All right, so you're now going to arch your lower back. So stick your bum out and then lift the top knee. Wait there, make an assessment. Do that one more time. Keep that lower back arched out, lift the knee. What do you feel, finger or thumb, or front or back of the hip more? Make that assessment, right? Now, roll your hips under, draw your belly button in, narrow the waist, lift the knee. What do you feel more? The back, right? Pretty cool. Let's keep doing that one. So, there are about, no, I won't say 100. Sounds cool if I say 100, so I'll say it, but I'm lying. There's about 50 or whatever glute isolation drills that you can do, and they all probably do wonderful things. But if you aren't organized at the pelvic position, you may not be maximizing what you're going to get out of that glute isolated exercise, right? So keep going with this little clam. 2, 1, lift that leg and hold it. Is your pelvis still organized? Is your belly button drawn in? Top leg extends out straight. Keep it there. You'll feel your hip lengthen and it'll hold a bit of tension. That's okay. Drag your toe forward, touch it on the ground, kick the person next to you, drag your heel backwards. Now here's the hard part. Keep dragging that heel backwards. Notice how your lower back wants to arch. What are you going to use to stop that from happening? Your abs. So draw your belly button in, tuck your hip. I don't care how far back your heel goes. I care how well organized your pelvis stays. Touch and drag, go. Touch and drag, go. Don't let your pelvis fray around. We are isolating your hip and the hip extensors. So if your pelvis throws around, again, good on the D floor, not good for running, not good for this, okay? So keep your pelvis still, and you're gonna start to feel that glute hum. Good, touch and drag for 2 more reps. Good, last rep. Good, keep it there, stay there. You wanna stabilize your hip here, and you wanna rotate externally. Turn your kneecap to the sky and your inner thigh to the front of the room. Don't rotate open to the roof, stay closed, draw your belly button in, keep that leg straight. Good, now double the speed. Don't let your pelvis fray around. Keep it still. And grit your teeth and make like Usher and let it burn for 3, 2, and 1. And there you have your glute. Did anybody not feel that? Give it a wee little tap, right? You put a band around your knee and you do 20 reps of each one of those. It's really going to burn. Or you're going to start to compensate. And that's then where you need to lean on it, someone that can watch you with an eye of detail and go, execute this properly. So we just isolated that glute. Let's integrate it with a bit more complexity. Who's done a single leg RDL in the gym? Good. Let's do it. Hinge over. Stay there. You're lengthening those fibers. Now, like a dog at a tree, rotate your pelvis open. Whoa, there's your balance. And then close your pelvis. And then stand up and flex. And check that glute's squeezing and your belly button's in, your spine's logging. Do it again. Boom, boom, what, and go. And we start to really access the rotational aspects of our hip, both in flexion and extension. And whose glute is burning? Yeah, humming. All right, who's done reverse lunges in the gym? bar on the shoulders or kettlebells by your side, and we step back and down, and then we drive up into hip extension and not lose balance. Hips under, go, do 3, lunge, and stand. You should be on that same leg. Does your kneecap wind out at the top of your stance phase? Good. Good. And slowly you're starting to integrate it, and then you can start to do, let's keep that pelvis organized, and do a little bit of single leg hopping. And you start to integrate it into more complexity. And so it goes. You guys seeing that? You're connecting the dots? And so, again, like, you could go in and just mindlessly do your lunges or do your split squats like Bulgarians. And the amount of times I see this and people kind of bang it out. And I'm going to tell you, that is better than doing nothing. So do it. But if you can squeeze the lemon, the last 20% of mechanical detail is going to give you like 80% of the value that you really want. I'm just made those numbers up. But principally, you get it, right? You've got to get that last little bit of detail, and that goes such a long way to building endurance because you feel that glute. And then when you're running, you're looking at the sunrise, and you're taking your video, you can kind of trust that those hips are going to do the right thing at the right time, okay? And we get to this improvised area. Sweet? Got that? You understand that if I extend this, but my hip flexors are tight, what might happen? The hip origin will want to stay close to the insertion, and that's where you've got to do the isolated mobility drills and a bit of stretching. And again, it's all sort of subjective. Some people are pretty mobile and limber. Other people are a little bit more stiff like me. It depends. And that's where, again, you've got your own little layers that we can work out for you. What was the last part? So we've done abs, hip lengthening, hip strengthening, so extending, say posture, but for me it's here. And so our sort of ability to respire is a critical component, and our efficiency of our breath is a critical component for all performance, okay? And so you're going to be pretty tight and pretty weak through your upper back. And it's really funny. Who has watched people lunge and Bulgarian split squat? And I just get really anal on this stuff because how you practice the stuff in a controlled environment is probably going to be how you execute the stuff in an uncontrolled environment. Maybe not. But for me, I've seen it far too often to say it's probably going to be that case. And so we want to mimic the shapes in the controlled environment where there's mirrors and there's people watching and coaching us. And we want that to mimic exactly how we want to be when we are in the less controlled environment. Okay? Your thoracic spine is tight and compromised. I'm going to show you now how to sort that out. The biggest thing that this causes a problem with is when we have this narrowing of your rib cage, our respiratory pattern and strategy changes. So we go to take a big breath in and we go up into our neck. And then more importantly, we can't hold that long spine. So our pelvic position, our abdominal organization is going to be all over the shop. We'll never really have a good strategy for where our pelvis needs to be, and therefore our hip lengthening and extending and shortening and contracting profiles, right? And so again, we need to think about the whole system. And so we need to understand that when we organize this and we start to organize our head position better in isolation, integrate it into a bit more of your strength type movements, we can actually be a little bit more balanced when we're moving without consciousness. And that's the whole idea. Who thinks they have bad balance? Only one person, the rest of you are good? Sweet. Balance is a skill, and balance is just an awareness of organization, okay? I can very easily balance a stick on my hand like so. As soon as there's a slight bend in the stick, I'm not going to balance very well. And so we just want to be able to access that posture, access a really well-organized spine and pelvis so that we can then use it when we're running. Because running, we spend very little time with 2 feet on the ground, okay? In fact, none at all. So let's get into your upper back. You're going to just feel this really quickly. If I stand, reach your hands up. Now I want you to make like Kanye and touch the sky. Go, go, shrug and reach and shrug and reach and shrug and reach and shrug and reach. What has your belly button done? Zipped in, right? And then you can roll your pelvis under slightly and your glutes will squeeze straight away. And now shrug and reach a little bit more. You feel how that starts to burn up here in the upper back. There's a lengthened spine mechanism, okay? So now you're tall and long and organized. So you're just going to do your next run like this. No. But you get that concept. We can pull ourselves long. Your transverse abdominals, the deep abs, the connective tissue attaches at the transverse process, right? So we get this lovely decompressive mechanism at the vertebrae as soon as we get long. Again, this is like a lot of the people that struggle with back pain, their movement inefficiencies is they tend to load those joints a bit more. And so if we can get long and organized, hopefully we don't have as much compressive mechanisms happening. All right, lie down on the floor. You're going to put your hands on your hips again. And you're going to isolate your thoracic spine. To do that, you're going to do that same drill we started with, where you roll your pelvis backwards, narrowing your waist. You should be able to slide your hands underneath where your belly button is. Everybody able to do that? Good. If you do need to, squeeze your glutes for this, but ultimately I don't want you to, okay? Keep your belly button off the floor, keep your waist narrow, and then slide your arms over your head. Keep your belly button off the floor, keep your waist narrow. If you need to, you can put your forehead on the ground and you can just suck in some mat, okay? Keep this position, take a big breath in, pause, and breathe out. Okay, relax, very good. It's the hardest way to lie on the ground ever. And so the muscles here that tend to be stuck forward, those are the ones we want to lengthen, because immediately it changes my head position. And so I lift my sternum up, my chin and my eyes. The big problem that we have though is people go, I'm now tall. It's like, no, no, no. There, all right, because we don't want to dump into our lower back. And so that's then where the isolated organization needs to come in and the practice needs to come in. It's not going to happen by just doing this workshop and now you're fine. It's practice. You won't get good at the guitar if you don't play it, right? You've got to do this stuff regularly, all the time, no matter how well you run, no matter how often you move, okay? Does that make sense? So then if I go the last integration piece, I'm going to stand up and I'm going to practice my running gait while I want to think sternum and chest, belly button and pelvic position. Naturally, I've done the hip lengthening drills, so I've got the hip extension happening naturally. And I can really start to trust, okay, from here up, I'm going to be really well organized and I'm going to distribute and manage force really efficiently. And then when we assess, you lack a bit of stiffness or inefficiency in terms of your elastic response or whatever it might be, if we're not strong, all that stuff is like you're going to be flogging not a dead horse, but it's sort of going back to what is the root of evil. And so we need to come out of that. Okay?
Oh, there we go. All right. Hello, everyone. Unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to see it, we have a group of people who really like to talk. So I'm going to try and speed it up as much as I can because I also really like to talk. But if you do have questions, obviously we're going to have the Q&A segment later on, so feel free to raise your hand as many times as you want there. And then also don't hesitate to send us a message or come chat to us after as well. A little bit about me. I've been running since I don't know, primary school or something like that, did a bit of cross country. And now in older years, I've done a bit of high rocks, a half marathon, a few different things like that. I wouldn't say I'm an expert, but I do enjoy it. And I also work with a lot of athletes in that space. So I do specialize in more high rocks, half marathon, marathon events, and then also CrossFit and things like that, working on body comp, performance, relationship with food and whatnot. So today, how I thought I would break it down is more so talking about race day. Because I feel like race day is essentially what you want to be continually practicing in your training, okay? Everything that you do in your training, I'm assuming you guys are like training for a competition. Is anyone here training for a competition at the moment? Okay, amazing. Who's here training for a less than 5K comp? Less than 10? Half marathon? Marathon? What are all you guys training for? Ultras? Ironmans. Wow, okay. I was like, wow, big case. So this will give you a good insight into carb loading, intra-training or intra-running nutrition, and then also I've got some troubleshooting things, but I might leave that for the Q&A at the end. So essentially getting into it, why is nutrition important? So energy or calories, So calories and kilojoules are the unit measures of energy, right? So they are the ones that are actually going to provide you with the fuel for your training. There are different types of fuel that we'll get into shortly, but they are really important. Specifically ones that are helping with the carb load, because they can help with providing that stored glycogen or carbohydrate to support your energy during your event. Who's here felt like they've hit a wall before during their run, where like their legs are fine, their lungs are fine, but they're just kind of like, I just don't want to keep going. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that's what we describe as hitting a wall. Okay, and I'm going to refer to that a little bit today. So that's essentially what we're trying to prevent. Hydration, I'm sure we've all heard different things about hydration requirements. Hydration is also very different depending on the race that you're going into. But electrolytes and water can help to prevent that dehydration, cramping, support focus, and then muscle function or the contraction which muscle undergoes. It helps to optimize performance. So there are certain supplements and things like that I won't talk about today, but that can really help with that aid, and then it can also support faster recovery. So getting into it, can you go, yeah, go next one. What I first want to talk about, go again. Sorry, I'm going to have to skip a few slides, guys. Go one more. All right. What I first want to talk to you guys about is carbohydrate requirements. I'm sure we've all heard it before. The carbohydrates are very important for fueling your running. There is so much research to show that people who, you know, when you compare a low carb diet to a high carb diet, for endurance athletes specifically, the high carb diet will outperform it again and again and again. So if anyone recommends keto to you during this time, no, like we just ignore them, okay? This is really going to help fuel your event. Essentially, we are storing carbs inside of our muscles and our liver as glycogen. Has anyone heard the word glycogen before? Mostly? Yeah. So you don't necessarily need to remember that, but it's good to know that that's what it is storing as. We have a decent amount of carbs that we can store inside of our muscles and our liver. Essentially, the way I like to see it is once those stores are topped up as much as we can day to day, but then also for your carb load for your event, that's when you can more or less perform your best. Research shows that as those stores deplete, performance drops. There's almost like a direct correlation. So essentially the goal when we're going into our training, but then also when we're going into our race day, is to make sure that those stores are topped up as much as we can. And then it's going to sound really weird, but the goal is then to prevent ourselves from using them. Because as I said, as those stores deplete, the performance will drop. Okay, so if we can kind of top them up with our day-to-day fueling, our carb load for our race day, and then have our pre-training and intra-training or race nutrition optimized, that's how you can prevent yourself from using those carbs, and then that's how you can perform those best. So in terms of carbohydrate requirements, this is more so your day-to-day fueling, okay, and then I've got the last slide was on more of that carb load. If you're doing low intensity training, we're looking for 3 to 5 grams of carbs per day. As that intensity and duration increases, that's when we use up more carbohydrates. So that's when we're going to need to have more carbs. So then from there, when we're looking for around, 1 hour of moderate training a day, we're looking for 5 to 7 grams of carbs per day. Endurance athletes going for 1 to 3 hours per day of training, 6 to 10 grams, and then really high, we're looking for 8 to 12 grams, so basically a carb load. That's what we recommend doing the 24 hours prior to those bigger training days. I don't want to overcomplicate it too much, but there's certain things in terms of carbohydrate periodization and whatnot that you might want to look into if, say, for example, you guys have got like a 2-3 hour training session day and then the other day you've got a rest day. So you might want to kind of alternate those high carb days versus lower carb days, depending on your training. All right, next one. Here are some examples of some high carb foods. Something I do want to mention, who here doesn't like to have like processed foods? Okay, like we prefer to have like more whole foods. Something I will say, and I like to talk about this because obviously like the reason you guys try to opt for whole foods is because it is more nutritious, right? More micronutrients, more fiber, more water, you know, all of those things, less of the quote unquote stuff that we probably don't need as much of. What I want to say is for people who have really high training demands, you will tend to have to include processed foods, okay? And I like to get rid of the stigma because essentially, say for example, you require 4,000 calories in a day and we have to get that within a short period of time, okay? Because you're training for a couple of hours a day, ideally sleeping for at least 8, and you know, you're working and everything like that as well. So you don't have a massive window to eat your food. And then on top of that, whole foods, I'm sure like if you guys had a kilo of potato versus, you know, a packet of chips, you would feel much more full from the kilo of potatoes, right? So already from that example, you can see that it's much easier to consume the processed foods, both from a time perspective, but then also from a digestibility perspective. At the end of the day, our priority is that you meet those requirements. Okay, so if you have to include some more quote unquote processed foods to be able to meet those requirements, that's going to be more important for your performance than, you know, having a whole food diet. And then on top of that, usually when people are prioritizing whole foods, you tend to tick off all your nutrient or a lot of your micronutrient requirements anyways, which is why people will want to have more processed foods, more whole foods. So you usually tick that off. So it's why I don't stress about that as much, but we can talk about that more after if you want. All right, this is an example of a carb load and kind of what it could look like and how many grams of carbs it actually is. It's quite deceiving. So this is for more race day fueling, but if you know, are training for a couple of hours a day, that's also what your day would look like. So I like to use that as an example because a lot of people, whether it be race day or whether it be, you know, just for your general training, will go, oh, a bowl of pasta the night before, like that's fine, that'll be fine. I was like, no, it's probably 60 grams of carbs. Like you're looking at like 600 grams of carbs for this athlete. You know what I mean? Like it's a lot of food to get in. So I like to provide that as an example. This is just more for digestion once again. We can probably leave that a bit more. All right, anyone have any questions about like that more day-to-day carb fueling, things like that? That's a great question. So the timing, it's more so like the 24 hours prior or up to the 48 hours prior. The things that you do have to think about is, are you exercising and moving a lot during that time frame? Because that's going to dictate the carbs that you're actually using up. So like that's part of the reason why, you know, when you do a taper, you're not exercising as much, so you're not using those carbs as much. And that's why the carb load is going to be more effective. But for like day-to-day fueling, I would probably look at like that 24 hours prior. You won't use up too many of your muscle glycogen stores if you don't exercise like much in that time frame, but you'll use up a lot more of those liver glycogen stores overnight. Okay, so like when you're sleeping and everything like that, you're using up a lot of the glycogen stores in your liver to kind of do all the metabolic processes that your body requires to do in sleep. So yeah, I would kind of aim for the 24 hours prior if you've got like a bigger run. Does that answer the question? Cool. All right. Then coming into your training session. Obviously, if you're training first thing in the morning, this is going to look a little bit different to if you were training in the afternoon. But let's hypothetically say that we're going to train in the afternoon. The closer you get to your training session, the more simple you want your carbohydrates to be. And the less fiber, the less protein, and the less fats you want, essentially, the closer you get to your training session. Those foods can take a long time to break down inside of your tummy. And so, has anyone like had a stitch before when they like ran? Yeah, or maybe you've had the shits when you've run, or you know, things like that. It's not super comfortable, okay? When your body is exercising, it's in more of that state of fight and flight, okay? It's not expecting to break down food, It's not in that rest and digest, right? You're in fight and flight. So the blood's in your arms and your legs away from your gut. So it's not expecting to break it down. So we need to feed it really simple things. Otherwise, it's going to hurt your tummy. And then also there's usually a slower release of carbs going into that training session if you were to have other slow digesting foods with it. So the way I like to look at it is 2 to 4 hours prior, you want to have a carb heavy meal. Okay, and then, that's when you can stack in your fiber and your good nutrients, to support your health and things like that. But then, maybe the 60 to 90 minutes prior, we're looking at like a muffin or wheat bix, like cereal, a smoothie, things like that. Already you can think about, oh yeah, that would be simple, that would be faster digesting. Then the closer we get to it, the more simple you want again. And so this is where I say, like the processed foods, there are things like, sultana, like dried fruit, dried fruit juice. That could be a more whole food option if you want to go for that option. But alternatively, I like to think about it as processed food is already processed. So it's going to be a lot less work for your gut to break down. Okay, so there are those elements of that. If you are prone to tummy upset, I would consider those things. So then basically that is topping us up even more. And then the carbs that we have just before our training session or our run starts, that is when the 15 minutes prior, we want to spike the blood sugar. So that's when we want it simple carbs, okay? No fats, no fiber, no protein. And we want to spike that blood sugar, okay? And we want to feed that blood sugar straight into the muscles, ready to go, okay? Kind of like a kid when they have lollies and they're like all fired up, We want to feel like that, okay, as we get into that run. And then the goal is to sustain it. And we'll talk about how we can do that in our intra. So, yeah, here's an example of what that could look like. You might, cereal. Yeah, I kind of talked about that. I said that. All right, intra. So for those who are doing very large distances, this guy and some is going to be for you. I didn't realize we were going to have like ultra marathon runners in here. So I apologize for that. But essentially, if we are training, there's elements of gut training. Who has heard of gut training before? Half of you? Okay. So there's elements of gut training that I won't talk about too much, but is also important. But let's say that we are doing our long run. Let's talk about our long run today. So we're doing our long run I didn't talk about the morning stuff. Okay, if you're training in the morning, just prioritize those pre-training carbs the 15 minutes prior, okay? We can talk about quantities and how that is individual to you, but don't get up any earlier to have your meals, okay? Sleep is gonna be way more important than getting in an extra meal before your training session. That's where the day before carb load comes in to help fuel that. All right, so then let's say we're training for a long run in the afternoon. We've had our carb-heavy meal for lunch, maybe we've had pasta. And then just beforehand, we've had our, let's say, lollies or some dried fruit. Then intra. The way I like to look at intra is really depending on where you're starting at. Who's had carbs like during their runs, long runs before? Nearly everyone? Everyone? Okay, cool. So I'm sure that you guys have kind of like felt what it feels like in your gut the first time that you have it and you're like, oh, this is a bit weird. You know what I mean? It feels a bit queasy, it feels a bit uncomfortable. When we're thinking about preparing for our long races, we really want to be thinking about training the gut and getting it used to having carbs in it whilst we're in that fight or flight response. Okay, so you want to basically gradually expose it to more and more carbs to essentially develop transporters in your gut to be able to absorb those carbs whilst running. Okay, so that takes time and that will gradually build up. But once you kind of build to the point where you're not getting any tummy issues and you're feeling good and fueled, then from there, that's when you want to think about how am I fueling this training session? So once again, the higher intensity you go to and the longer that you go for, the more carbs you are going to use. Makes sense. So Anything like less than 90 minutes, my opinion's changed on this in terms of like high roxy stuff, but you guys, I don't think anyone except for Belle is doing like high roxy stuff. But for anything like less than 90 minutes for a run, you don't really need carbs. If you've done your good fueling the day prior and then you've done your, pre-training carbs, that should get you through that training session, okay? Unless we're doing like zone 5 stuff and you're like going real hard out, okay? So for most of that, you won't need it. Then from there, anything 1 to 2 hours, we're looking at 30 to 60 grams of carbs per hour. So this is more like your half marathon stuff, right? Or fast half marathoners. So that's still a decent amount of carbohydrates. Everyone used a gel before? A standard gel is about 25 grams of carbs. So you're looking at least 2 of them for your long run if you're going, really intense. And then as the duration increases again, we want to be having more. So that's when we're looking 40 to 90 grams of carbs per hour. But for like ultra marathons, and then I've just got a bit about fluids, 300 to 500 mils of water per hour, electrolytes, really depends on the individual. Please.
What would you see for high rocks and why would that be different from what your answer on that?
So Hyrox is using different energy systems. When you're running, like if you're keeping the same pace for the whole time, like these guys will probably describe it better than I would, but like you're using that same like energy system, like same muscle groups, things like that. Whereas with Hyrox, there's like the anaerobic, aerobic, strength, endurance, muscular components. You are able to fatigue yourself a lot more and use up a lot of more carbs. And then also you can tend to like go to higher intensities because like, say for example, you're doing a sled push, you're fatiguing a certain group of muscles, but then you go to run, you're fatiguing those other muscles. So you're able to fatigue your body essentially so much more and go to higher intensities. So therefore, like having the carbs intra will probably help to get you through. But if it's like a standard like 10K run, even like a race for that, I wouldn't say it'd be necessary. Does that answer the question? Yeah, cool. Any other questions about the intra stuff?
4 days ago.
Yeah. It would be different. So ultras like tend to be lower intensity, right? Compared to like what your, faster, shorter events are. So like with ultras, because it is that lower intensity, your gut can tolerate a bit more, okay? But obviously you need a lot more food because you're fueling for a lot longer versus like the shorter intensities, you won't need as much volume. So generally speaking, what I would say is like in the hours that you're not running, that's when we're doing like carb load, carb load, carb load, carb load. I would change it up, the types of foods and everything like that, because flavor fatigue is a real thing. The digestibility is a real thing. If you're getting a really upset tummy, could be worth looking into like lower FODMAPs and things like that to help just with that ease. But then intra, you'd want to do a lot of gut training because so not only does the intensity affect the digestibility of carbs intra-running, but then also the volume. So like say you have 1 gel for an hour, you're like, oh yeah, like that's fine. But now all of a sudden you have 7 gels over 7 hours. Maybe the gut hasn't fully absorbed all of the first couple of gels. So sometimes that can take a while too. So I would say like change up the types of carbs and go with what you're going to digest well. And yeah, probably work on like faster absorbing gels as well. Yeah, does that answer the question?
Yeah.
Hanah? Yeah? Okay. Yes, thank you, Joe. And then also troubleshooting. So I just thought I would go through this briefly, but basically if you get stomach cramps or gastrointestinal distress when running and like fueling during, sometimes the cause can be over-fueling. So once again, the gut's not used to that amount of carbs during your training session, so it can be just a bit too much load. It can be due to high amounts of fiber or fat, as we discussed. They take a long time to break down. They can upset your tummy, or lack of hydration. So easy fixes: slow down your intake, okay? Switch to sips of water and electrolytes, and then avoid solid foods until symptoms subside. Nausea, that can be due to dehydration. It can be due to overhydration, and then also caffeine sensitivity if anyone is prone to that. So once again, take smaller sips of water, slow down the caffeine intake, and focus on the electrolytes, dehydration. Next slide, please. It's similar to like, you know how Dom was talking about at the start, like feel. Listen to your body, feel. What works for me might not work for you, you know, like we've really got to take a really individualized approach because everyone's tummy and sensitivity is really different. Bloating, so if you're getting bloating like during your run, you could be drinking too much at once or over-consuming your carbs. Once again, reduce it and then just kind of sit at that until your symptoms subside and then gradually increase. Cramps, there's like cramp fixes and things like that, which can be found in gels or like pickle juice and things like that. Sometimes it can be due to electrolyte imbalance. Sometimes it's just like that neuromuscular fatigue and the body not being used to those loads or that intensity. So an easy fix are some of those shots. And then hopefully it's just one more. And then finally, low energy or hitting a wall. We've kind of talked about what the priority would be there, but that's when you want to top up on those carbs to give you that energy boost to spike that blood sugar and continue going. All right, I'm gonna wrap it up there.
We'll talk about general strength strategies and we're going to put it all together. So this is kind of like how we would map this out on the whiteboard. Dom will go through the assessment, so most of us here are really visual, and then we're going to go through your current training plan, what you're working towards, your strength stuff, how nutrition might support that, and hopefully just answer a few more questions along the way. Awesome. Okay, let's talk about your current strength stuff. Roughly how many times do you generate a week? Cool. And other than running in gym, what else do you do a week typically? So,
At your half marathon speed, what approximately do you think that's going to be? What time are you looking to finish in?
Like 152, 153.
Okay. You ready? It's going to start. It's going to start really slow. I'm going to start you at 8 kilometers an hour.
Okay.
It's like 7:30 pace.
Okay.
It's really slow. We'll bump it up a little bit once we get you going. Cool. All right, let's go up a little bit because that's easy. We'll get her to, I reckon, what her zone 2 pace is going to be, and probably pretty close. I reckon you're a 9.4. Awesome. Everyone just observing. You can move around the room, please do. This is a learning lesson for you. Watch her from the back, watch her from the side, have a look. What do you hear? What do you see? We'll go to 10 and then we'll go from there. We'll pump you up from 10. And the cool thing about doing gait analysis as well is every coach and everyone sees something different, which is cool. It's really hard to assess technique from the naked eye. Does everyone agree? If you're just like someone just watching? Yeah, it can be quite tough. She runs pretty good though, yeah? It's good. Awesome. All right, I'm gonna stop you there. Ready? You can jump on the side. Ready? Go. Well done. Awesome. Round of applause. You wait here. All right, good job. For everyone that had a look, what did they see? It can be anything. And no answer is wrong and no answer is right until I tell you. Let's relate this a little bit to her injuries existing first and what she's experiencing. She's had an increase in volume, obviously, recently with this half marathon coming up, and we're seeing shin pain bilaterally. All the evidence around technical stuff tells us that, you know, a heel strike generally predisposes us to anterior type symptoms. So that's one little component of what we do see. I think there was also a little bit of a dorsiflexion control, I wouldn't say problem, but you were a bit slappy a little bit. Wasn't too bad, but just a little bit. Cool. So that's one thing that I noticed from a shin pain perspective is where did she land? I think outside, if you ran, you would actually land out further in front and we would actually see that a bit more pronounced. The treadmill actually helped you, I think, today. Did you feel pretty good on there?
Yeah, it didn't hurt as much.
Yeah. So treadmill coming towards you, you're gonna land a little bit further underneath you. You're gonna change a little bit. So it's often a prescription with guys like this. I tell them to do some treadmill running to get used to that pattern. They can actually run still with decent volume, but their pattern changes slightly because the treadmill's coming towards them, so they start to land more underneath, which is cool. Other things that I saw. Yes, I saw a slight crossover of the body on the right side, and a little bit of a lack of hip control too on the right side, particularly from the back, but not too bad. Potentially explaining what's happening in the outside of this knee as well. When you did the testing, your squat and your calf raise and things, what was it like? Was it quite even?
Right balance is worse and it was harder to count. I've also had a couple ankle surgeries.
Okay, more info. Couple of ankle surgeries. Proprioception coordination. Yeah. Stiffness, elasticity, reflexiveness as well. So all those things definitely contribute with a few ankle surgeries as well. Cool. The other thing, and probably one of the biggest things I saw, she runs really good, but she's a little bit backside. Everything happens out here. Did anyone else notice that? That most things happen behind her. You almost wait to take the next step, in a way. So you'll wait to land before the next leg comes through, which means that you're out here a lot, okay? Momentum decreases in that sense. So with someone like this, I'll ask everyone first, what would we give her from a strength perspective, do you think, knowing all the information that you have now? Any ideas? Who said that? Yeah. Hip flexor, what? Like length? Or hip flexor there? Maybe. Okay. Anyone else? Yep, for sure. Yeah, definitely some lateral hip stuff on the right. Like a lot of the stuff that Kieran does, it's kind of like it's gonna help with everything anyway. That's your base that you'll work, everything will work from there, okay? Anything else? From my perspective of things, I'm gonna talk about what I would do from a stiffness perspective and a technique perspective in getting her, are you saying something or you were stretching? To just get her a little bit less out here and a little bit more under here. Do you want to do some drills? Does everyone want to watch her do some drills that I'll teach? Okay, come over here. Go this way first. I want you to put your outside leg in the band. Okay, so the band's going to pull you in. It's going to try and pull you in. Your job's to keep it out when this is up here. So you're going to stand on one leg. Hands are going to be on your hips. You're going to be strong and locked. You're not out here. You're under here. Okay? I want you just to repeatedly hit the ground. Okay? Strong. Every time. Hit hard. Strong. Okay. Show me. I want you to tell me what you feel in the stance leg. As far out, if you feel like you're about to lose balance, take it in a bit. Yep. Take it in a bit. Awesome. Let's get that band up there. Cool. Hit hard. Good. Keep it out. Keep that leg straight on the ground. Strong. Locked. Keep going. She's doing good. Spring back up. Ready? Down, up. Boom. Okay. What do you feel here?
I'm not even feeling there, so I can feel my ankle first.
Awesome. Do the other side. Cool. Yep, get a little bit of tension on that band. Find it. Find your stability. Keep it strong. Good. So the stuff here will make this better too, but I also like getting people to do this to feel what it is that they struggle with when they strike. What do you feel side to side? Any difference? Yeah? Does that glute fire up really quickly? Cool. So this is a drill that I would use for someone that has a little bit of a lack of lateral stability through stance. Is they've got to strike with some relative pace, and their body has to create stiffness. The faster you go, the stiffer you are as well. But the fact that she didn't feel much happening here in activation tells us that at speed, she loses it. Under fatigue, she loses it. Cool. So that's number one. That's something I'll do with someone like this. Good? Cool. Awesome. Next one. To try and get you a little bit more front side and less out here, I would also work on a switch drill. You're up here. I want you to land. Cool. Strong and stable. 1, 2. Hold. 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 I want you to notice what you feel on each side. So it's another way the body is really good at finding stability when it needs it to. Good. Can you, one thing, just a little bit of pre-stretch here, so there. So point before you start, just a little bit. Not like that. So instead of like this, just go like that. Yep. So up. So start up. Yeah, better. Hold strong. I want you to hold it at the top for a couple of seconds. Everyone see how she loses that foot eventually? It's not a common thing for her. She isn't used to that. Okay?
This one?
Yeah. So there's a little bit of control aspect of the tib ant when you do this as well. You just go, ooh, I want it out there. Okay? This is a drill that I would use for getting her a little bit more here rather than here. Focusing on actual drive off the ground, but also hip lock when you're in that position. But once again, a really good foundation base makes this so much smoother and beautiful and all those sorts of things. But I like doing these things with athletes that come in so that they can see, wow, this is what I look like when I get up to some sort of velocity, or this is how my body responds when I move at speed. Because running isn't done slow, especially when we're racing and that sort of thing, or we're doing our faster stuff. It's done with relatively short ground contact times. So you seeing what you need to work on over time and then implementing some of this in with lots of strength and stability work too, it's a beautiful piece of the puzzle eventually over time. You'll run, I'll see some things, I'll make you do some things, you'll jump back up, you'll do some strength stuff and then you work on it. And this is stuff that I actually give people to do every single day. Get the brain working, get the neuromuscular control happening, work, and eventually with stability work, with this, it all starts to become ingrained in and people, like I said, remember how I said I don't change people's technique on the spot, I give them things to do so they then go and work it out themselves as well. I say, do this, go feel it when you run, see how you feel now. Cool? And everyone's different. So there's a couple of things for her. Someone else might be really poor when they're just landing eccentrically, and we might have to do some just drills just to work on that. Like, everyone's different. You're all individuals. You always have different things to work on. Okay, Kieran, do you have anything?
Very bendy body, right? So holding lots of stiffness is going to be quite hard. I'm so envious of these people that tend to be really good at getting force, but the stiffness, which is running free energy, we get from a tendon drills a little bit less excessive. It's not that it's not, it can be trained, but nonetheless, we want to create rigidity so we can start to utilize that. When you did the band drill, I noticed that sort of a little bit of a run. As turn it facing in, stand nice and straight. Look at the knees. See how far back they go. That's that hyper sense. It's normal, we should have a really bendy body again. So as soon as you roll your pelvis under so the knees want to bend a little bit, right? End of each gate. If the knee is extended before the hip really extends, big problem for everybody. Why? Anybody want to answer that question? Why? If I extend my knee, for my hip. And probably likely going to roll anterior, which means what's not going to squeeze as much as I want it to. The glute, the biggest force generator in the bone, so let's seek force somewhere. Right? Not ideal. So, drilling wise, this stuff starts to integrate that. Let's get underneath you, let's get those hips through. And so again, I'm just going to reverse engineer that. It's a little bit of core work, probably not too much. Hip flexor lengthen, hip flexor strengthen. Because if I flex my hip really well on this side, guess what I'm going to do on this side? Extend it really well. It's contralateral, fire like that. Send your arm, put your legs out wide. Hands either side of one knee. Whoa. Keep your hands flat, showing on motion. Point your toe, lift your leg. Isolated hip flexion, pulse your leg. Rec fem, the hip flexor in isolation. Has anyone ever done this? If you haven't, you cramp like that. You do it properly, taking your hands forward and flat. It's really nasty. So we're just taking these drills, we're going to work on complexity to isolation. Okay, so we get a little bit of hip flexor, maximal contractile stuff, and then flip over and do some. Right leg back, single knee here. Left leg up. We want to get under, right? The tendency will be to sway under. Don't want that. So let's roll the hips and lift the spine. Back glute squeezes that rec fem, and those hip flexors that just squeeze like crazy. Now get to lengthen. Let's put a little load into that length. Lift your back knee 1 mil off the ground. Squeeze your back butt cheek. Keep your right hand assessing that. So here's a hip lengthening mechanism. So then we can slide in and out and start to practice up. Here we are in the gym, right? And we start to integrate our gym. So look at the rib through the chest and the spine. Keep the length, roll the pelvis. I would just hammer in that isolation. Okay? So then we start to address that anterior sort of fatigue to be on the backside mechanic, and we can start to get a little bit of control on the underside of the pelvis, instead of the hips. Okay. The other part would be then just looking at the strengthening of the hip extensors, and it's not just glute; it's the proximal hamstring as well. For lie down the back. But you can really see it easily when you bend your knees. Wriggle your heels away from you slightly. Extend your hips as high as you can. Go, 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 go. So we get this big bend and a slight anterior tilt with a bit more lumbar extension. Okay? If we drop the pelvis slightly, roll the hips under slightly, where are you feeling it? Hamstrings and glutes don't squeeze. Are you feeling any lengthening down the front of the thigh? Roll the pelvis a little bit more. You might get a hip flexor lengthening mechanism. Some people go, I feel it in my hips. It's like, what is the glute? And they feel like hell. Just because it's lengthening, right? And now you're going to dorsiflex the toes up towards you. Good, lift up one knee. And then the other assessment we can make is, do we then find stability in this hip extension? And then we can do a small pulse hammy in isolation, right? You're at home, about to go run, I want to just get this proximal end of the hamstring going, and the underside of the pelvis rolls a little bit more neutral. This is your warm-up drill. Let's just start to feel the hammy bounce up and down. Good, go the other side. Drops a little bit more. We want to then work on that rotational aspect. We'll go into too much detail, but literally those are two really basic ones that I always go, okay, before you go. You're going to just give me some hip flexor contractile stuff, some hip extensor to the proximal end contractile stuff. It's even better if you put your shoulders up on a bench and slide out into single leg hip extension drill. Feels a little more glutey and proximal hammy as opposed to just lying on the floor putting your heel on a bench. It's going to be a little more pistol, sensory input perspective. And then we'd go to that isolated hip lengthening stuff and just get that feeling. And so then when we run, hopefully we just have a little bit more input. And again, we're not going to be able to stay conscious on it. But then when we start to come to the gym and bring these drills in, next time that band's putting the knee in, we're not extending at the knee, not hip. We can integrate that knee pattern. This track's better, we'll start to land a little bit more integrity, a little more stiffness, a little more stability. And so we go. So that's a little isolated stuff. Next time you're in class, your lunges or your Bulgarians or whatever else is going on, we are going to be looking at, do you finish there or do you finish there? Because when you start to put 30, 40 kilos on your shoulders and you're extending at the hip and you can load it, lengthen the fiber, shorten the fiber and practice that pattern, you're going to wake up with a really sore bum. And then you're going to run on that sore bum and you'll feel like, oh shit, this is a bit faster, and you'll actually start to integrate this stuff and you don't need to be conscious of it. it'll just do its thing. And that's how we start to connect the dots, right? Bilateral strength, squat or a deadlift. What do you think I'm going to cue at the end position of that squat? Anyone want to help me? Hip extension. Bend the knee. Right like that. Go.
Thank you. All right, that's us guys. Thank you so much for coming. Really conscious of time, so thank you again. We're all going to be hanging around after. We always say, don't guess, assess. We do the consultations, we do the running assessments, we do the bio assessments for the bow here, which we'll have all next week. So it's really important to you. If you're niggly, if you've got something coming up, come see one of us. We're all going to be hanging around. Best place to start. For the coaches, I always think of it like footy. You pass the ball so many times between 5 and 18, so when you start playing footy, it's just natural. All these little drills just become more natural. It's really overwhelming to start with, but once you put it into practice, it becomes much easier. So for all the coaches in the room who do running coaching, tri coaching, gym coaching, just drip feed over a long period of time. Thank you for your time this morning, and yeah, we'll hang around.
Physiology-wise, if you want your lactate threshold, blood lactate measure, I do it here as well. So that you can, instead of estimating your zones and bits and pieces, we can be a bit more objective. So that's what we do. So if you're really keen, and you're like, I want to know what my zone is, my zone 4, whatever it might be, we can do that.
Thanks guys. Cheers.
What up?